a.m. March 19, national security operatives conducted a search at the home of former Governor Dr. Anderson, but without any arrests. National security has declined comments on the search. Minority Leader in Parliament Alexander Afenyo-Markin, who has visited the scene after the raid, swiftly condemned the national security operations as lawless and alleged a political witch hunt. He also accused the national security operatives of theft.
They forced their way, overpowered the security, and entered his premises. This Rambo-style approach must cease. This is the first time in the history of our country that a governor of a central bank is being subjected to such a treatment. Unfortunately for the governor, some 10,000 cedis on his bed could not be found.
The latest raid follows another home search of former Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta on February 11. Ken Ofori-Atta sued the national security operatives for allegedly trespassing on his home and is seeking damages. Speaking on the issue on the floor of Parliament, Majority Leader Mahama Yariga apologized and assured Parliament it would not happen again.
I have called the relevant stakeholders in the matter to find out exactly what happened. We want to say and assure our fellow countrymen and our colleagues in this House that we have received assurances from the Office of the National Security Coordinator that it was not intended that that should happen, and that occurrence is most regrettable and unfortunate, and he wants to give this House his word and assurance that a thing like that should never happen again.
But that assurance has been broken. The Minority Caucus now claims these raids are part of a larger strategy to intimidate former government officials and others connected to the NPP. But there's been an immediate pushback from the Mahama government. Deputy Attorney General Dr. Justice Semsai insists recent actions by national security are lawful and targeted.
The views are divided, but I would like to assure the public that we are, as much as we can, pursuing persons who are believed or are suspected to have looted, state assets, being money or other properties. Every search that you see, is part of the government framework to fight the corruption, and we'll take responsibility for the search that are happening. And we want to make it clear that those searches and the mode in which they were done in accordance with law. Warrants were procured and warrants were used to conduct those searches.
But the opposition remains unconvinced, warning that these actions threaten democracy. The NPP has also protested recent arrest of journalist Okatechi Afrifa-Mensah, linking it to a broader crackdown. For now, the political storm rages on. The question remains, are these legitimate anti-corruption efforts or politically motivated intimidation?
Very bogus committee.
Why do you say so?
Why? And a committee that is put together, and it's an intentional committee put together just to make sure that we find certain facts and push a particular candidate away from the candidacy so that we can bring our own. You call that a credible committee, fact-finding committee? If Professor Michael Quay thinks he has integrity, thinks that he is credible, I want the first page of his fact-finding report. Why my son Michael Quay Jr. lost Domekwa Abenya's seat. He should give us a detailed report on that.
It is possible.
If he's able, no.
It is possible it could be captured.
No, if he's able to do it, and do it with the needed integrity, with the transparency, without biases and prejudices, I will take any report finding that he puts in there against Dr. Bawumia. You remember that in 2020, when I was going for the elections, I was heavily pregnant.
Right.
Yes, I have a role to play as a mother. I lost my kid. I lost my baby. I didn't get what I was expecting out of the term of my pregnancy. It didn't end there. In the time of my grief, my oldest son fell ill in the United States. I had to be there. And I made sure I notified those who ought to know. And I wasn't there the way they're making the picture look as if you're there and you're not. I was there, and I was making sure that what ought to be said and communicated to all those that matter, I did.
Including the chief of staff, the president?
Exactly. As a minister, you can't travel out without permission from the minister.
So they knew,
from the chief of staff.
They knew the challenges we were going through.
Exactly. And I expected mothers to feel my pain. I expected fathers to feel my pain. And that is what happened. My son was at the verge of death. I had the choice to stay as a mother and take care of my son, or take up my position as a member of parliament and as a minister. Any mother looking and watching me today should put herself in my shoes. What choice would you have made? Of course, if you're not a witch, you're going to choose that of your child.
Right. So, once again, start with you, Dr. Arthur Kennedy. What do you make of these two situations? Let's begin with Dr. Addison, the search conducted in his home. Earlier, we were told that Ken Ofori-Atta, the search that was conducted in his home was without a warrant, but we got information that it was actually done with a warrant. Then now this happens. It's also being called a raid. Our checks suggest that this was a normal process that was done. The court gave a warrant, and the warrants for the purposes of the search that was conducted in the home, and the things that were taken away from the home did not include stealing money, but these were, call them hard drives, that needed to be examined because the former governor is suspected of having an installation that gives him the capacity to spy into what is happening in the bank and to retrieve some documents as well. What do you say about that? Before Adwoa Safo's situation, where she said she will not shut up, the party is hauling her for disciplinary action. Having followed her, do you think that she's done anything wrong by stating her side of the accusation she has faced?
So if we're taking both together, let me begin with Dr. Addison's case. I listened to Honorable Mahama Yarige's submission on the floor of Parliament. I think that...
that was in respect of Ken Ofori-Atta.
Yes. I think that it will seem the promise he made may not have been kept fully. But I also think that there ought to be accountability. The security forces and the law enforcement agencies ought to be able to do their work. I think maybe the procedures need to be updated a little bit so that, for example, if they went there with a warrant, when they got there or after, he should have been able to get his attorneys there to witness the search, so that there will be proper documentation of whatever was taken up from there so that there will be no dispute. I am saddened by the fact that this has already been turned into a partisan back and forth when it should actually be objective and principled law enforcement. But to be fair, the NPP people who are complaining, when the NPP was in government, there were similar complaints from the other side too. I think we need to be careful to depoliticize these things so that they can happen objectively and partisan correlation will not come in. Maybe we also need to make sure that we professionalize our security forces so that some of these things can be done in a way that do not look as if this is a military government that is doing operations and are not guided by rules. That aside, I think that we should await further evidence that maybe laws or procedures were breached as far as Dr. Addison's case is concerned.
Okay.
Due process accountability.
Right. So, Doc, hold it there for me. Alfred Adwoa, thanks for staying with us still on this. What do you say? When you are conducting a search with a warrant and you show up in the house of a suspect, do you need their lawyers to be there?
Thank you very much, Samson. Actually, it is not clearly stated in our laws whether your lawyer should be present before a search is conducted. But I think, as suggested by Dr. Kennedy, if we may want to reform that side of the law, it will be better. After all, the moment you are served with or you are shown that warrant, notionally, you are under arrest because you should be part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you may want to insist that you want your lawyers to come so that they can conduct a search, I'm all for it. I remember some time ago,
and the point you just made, that kind of process suggests an arrest, and therefore Article 14 will be triggered. So the person will be told in a language they understand that this is why we are here and you are being arrested, and then they will exercise their right to a lawyer of their choice. We understand that this warrant was actually not just a search, but for arrest as well.
Oh, then that answers the question. If it was for an arrest as well as a search, then Dr. Addison ought to have been given the opportunity to get in touch with his lawyers for the process to go on. Because the moment they came into his residence, he was under a form of restriction. Couldn't have said that he was walking away. And so his right under Article 14 came into force the moment they showed him the warrant and then was informed that he was to be arrested or he was under arrest and they were to conduct a search as well.
But it is upon him, the person, the suspect, to say that I want to call a lawyer or I want to do this. If the suspect doesn't say so, then those who are doing the process are not under obligation. Are they? As we understand, there was a cordial process. Nice conversation actually went on. But there's the other side. We are also picking from the Addison side that initially it was not cordial until there appears to have been a call to the lead person. And then they seem to have toned down and allowed for some bit of, nice cooperation, we understand, and some even conversation, chit-chat that went on.
Something. The moment you are told that you are under arrest, the arresting officer is under strict obligations to inform you of your right to a lawyer of your choice. And so if indeed they went there to effect his arrest, it was incumbent upon the arresting officers to inform Dr. Addison of his right to a lawyer of his choice, if that is indeed the case. Now, if what you're also being told is that it was initially very cordial, then later went into something different.
No, it started rough, then went to cordial, as we understand
very
now.
well. And so that is the essence of the discussion. How do we conduct a search? The fact that you have a search warrant does not mean that the suspect that you are going to conduct a search on has no right. The right to personal dignity is a fundamental right. The right to counsel is a fundamental right. If the suspect is not resisting the search, then there will be no need on the part of the officer searching to apply any unreasonable force.
Right. In your experience, have you ever encountered a search that was cordial, a search come into your home and it is a cordial process? And we also need to disabuse the minds of the public where the impression is given as if a warrant is always required for some of these things. Sometimes it is done without a warrant, but it is lawful, correct?
Correct. If you are going to conduct a search without a warrant, then the person leading that search should be of a certain rank in the security agencies. But if you are going with a warrant, then that officer will only read the warrant to you. And I remember quite well when we were in Legon those days, that we were going to constitutional law, the question came up that if a warrant is served on you or you are shown a warrant and the name on it is not your name, can the search go on? And so if you enter someone's residence, for example, in the case of Dr. Addison, I'm giving just a scenario, it doesn't mean that's what happened. And then the name on it is Alfred Tua Yeboah. Does it mean that Dr. Addison should just give you and say, oh, since you are in my residence and my name is not the name that's captured on the warrant, you can go ahead and then conduct that search. So if you are imposed or if you are holding a search warrant, you must effect it in accordance with law. And I was citing this example. When we're in office, you can have several cases that I think if you go to the age, you will see that people were searched, either with a warrant or without a warrant. And I quite remember that my Dr. Sremsai, who's now the deputy AG, there was a case in Tema where he filed an application contending that an ex-parte application that we had used to procure a search warrant ought not to have been ex-parte, but should have been on notice. I mean, now Doc is sitting on the other side. And we battled out in court in Tema. And there was a ruling to that effect that the state could go ahead and procure search warrants ex-parte.
Of course. If it is procured on notice, then there will be nothing to search.
Exactly. I remember those times telling Dr. Sremsai, I said, Doc, I mean, you are hitting, I mean, you want to go by your side of the argument. But if we were to notify suspects that they were to be searched, for them to come and oppose before the court gives an by the time they even oppose, the court gives everything that you wanted to search is already gone.
How do you propose this issue quickly about that? So we go to the last one. How do you propose this issue about alleged theft? How do you propose that should be resolved?
Yes, Samson, that's very key. Now, if you go into the residence of a suspect and you are conducting a search, the suspect must be present. Or if a suspect is already present, at least you get someone independent between, of the suspect and then you, so that he can also observe the proceedings. But in this particular instance, I don't know what happened. If what Doc's side is saying is true, that 10,000 Ghana cedis and other jewelry were allegedly stolen, now we've taken the thing to a different dimension, that those who went to effect the search have rather committed a crime. And that's why moving forward, I suggest that any officer who goes to conduct a search must have a body cam on him or her.
All right.
With that, if you had an issue like this, it could be easily resolved. But my key concern is about this allegation that the CCTV camera, the systems there were deactivated in the course of the search. And that raises some form of issue. You may take it away, but before you even take it away, let everything be captured on that CCTV camera. But if you want to take it away for investigation, they are saying they are seeking to do. No problem.
Thank you.
But the moment you deactivate it when you enter the residence, then it speaks to motive.
That's right. Thank you very much. And we have been speaking to, trying from sources to check on all of these things and its accusation and counter denials. But like Dr. Kennedy said, we should wait for further and better particulars later so that we will begin to know the full details. Somehow, national security, when they're doing these things, they don't talk. And we're also beginning to see some new thing, something that looks commendable. The Deputy Attorney General, they have done an arrest of an important person, so to speak, who also was coming from the UK to the country. And the person, together with the wife or a woman, have been arrested. They are in custody. And then they go to visit them, ask them if they are being treated well. and they confirm that they are being treated well, they are allowed, their lawyers are allowed to see them and so on and so forth. If we do it this way, it will be great. I remember going to the BNI and being denied the opportunity to see my client, and that was such a breach of the law many years ago. All right, Dr. Kennedy, we're going to Adwoa Safo's thing. She says she's being gagged. Hakmana Uswajman and others say the statement issued by the General Secretary asking her to shut up and also asking everybody to shut up and also seeking to put her through disciplinary process is in order.
Well, that is part of why we are where we are. Sometimes elders don't behave like elders. They allow knives in the home to be used in carving pythons. And when we accuse them of being python eaters, they get a little disappointed. I think that party defeats lead to disappointments all over the world. And most of the time, it is followed a little bit by recrimination. People look for who to blame. So, for example, in 1980, when Jimmy Carter lost to Ronald Reagan, the Democrats didn't invite him to a party conference again for decades because they thought that putting him in front of the public cost them votes. So the United States, for example, they've been talking about Kamala Harris and, you know, how they blew almost 2 billion and lost to Trump. So these things happen, but they must be done decorously. I respectfully think that the General Secretary, while he may have good intentions, erred in issuing his edict. It is not even clear to me whether he has the constitutional authority to do that as an individual or whether even the party can do that, given Ghana's rules of freedom of expression and all those kinds of things. So while his intention is good, I will respectfully suggest that he seriously consider withdrawing the edict. As far as Adwoa Safo is concerned, I think she appears to be very hurt, and she had said a lot of things very powerfully. The thing that got to me the most was the alleged remarks about her father's education and standing. I hope those are not true, but if they are true...
Makokwe Jr. has denied them,
Yes. So if he has denied them, then I'll just leave it at that. But it goes to the fact that when we are having primaries, those primaries ought to be monitored and they ought to be conducted in a way that will make it easy to put the party back together. You know, we have primaries in which people get beaten and they get damaged, and the candidates concerned, nothing happens to them. But having said all that, I want to respectfully appeal to Honorable Adwoa Safo to stand down and tone down. I understand her to speak, but I respectfully ask her to stand down and tone down. I think a political party is like a marriage or a relationship. It is the biggest volunteer thing we do, and we do it out of love. So I urge all people in the NPP, while they are expressing their opinions, to do that with the knowledge that in the end, we have to come together and to win elections. We cannot compel obedience. The people who went to elect John Mahama, they said he got 25% of his votes from NPP people. And they were being patriotic Ghanaians. And hopefully in future, we'll also win with some NDC votes. And I look forward to working with the NDC people who will vote for a future presidential candidate of our party. So while we are doing all these discussions, the goal is to rebuild the NPP stronger so that it will become once again the party of Dubois and Darocha and John Ajekum Kufuor, which can go forward in elections. But while we are doing this, there is also the work of being a constructive opposition. so that we can call the government out for the things it is properly and offer alternatives. Every Ghanaian is interested in having a viable NPP, and to have that, the work of being a constructive opposition must continue. I, for example, heard Kojo Opon Nkrumah in Parliament last week on the budget, and he was excellent. So we need to be able to, as they say, run and eat our yokagare at the same time. We should rebuild and also be a constructive opposition. And I ask all of us to do this with respect, but issuing edicts is not the way to go.
You say the Constitution, in Chapter 5 allows for freedom of expression, and she was exercising a constitutional, right, and the Constitution trumps the party's constitution, except the Constitution, except the party's constitution to conform with the constitution of the country. But she has subscribed to the party's constitution. The party's constitution is against anti-party conduct that, as it were, brings the party into disrepute. And there are many significant people in the NPP who have suffered disciplinary action because of similar conduct. Why should she be treated differently?
Actually, I am not asking that she should be treated differently. I think that the problem with the NPP is that we apply these ethics selectively, and this has happened for some time. For example, during Kufuor's time, somebody who was on suspension, Haruna Iseku, was actually restored and moved straight into the national chairmanship of the party, because powerful people decided that his suspension was unnecessary. The same thing happened in 2008. Even though I know of at least 10 MPP members in good standing who were denied the right to be parliamentary candidates because, quote unquote, they had not nurtured the party enough. And then we went ahead and picked a non-party member to be running mate. I am just saying that we cannot say that these are our rules and then ignore them when the powerful want them ignored. And the same thing happened. Nana Akufo-Addo said in 2008 that those who had gone independent, if I win, I'll never have anything to do with them. I won't talk to them. The day after the first round, he was calling them because we needed their help. Some of them went on to be leaders. Even in divided parliament, some of them, contrary to the party's rules, became leaders. I'm just saying that the party ought to be consistent and fair in the application of rules. And this particular edit of Gagan Adwoa Safo, even before coming to that, a lot of people have vented, including the General Secretary. He was all over the news talking about how the president won't listen to advice, this person won't do this, or say Chairman Sabons was on air talking about the problems. I was on air talking about the problems. Why is it that all of a sudden Adwoa Safo talks? Is it because she's a woman? Is it because she's attacking particular people? And I disagree with most of what she's saying, but I'm just saying that we build a party with love. It have been okay for the General Secretary or somebody to go and see her, to ask her to tone down. All those things are to number.
Okay.
We do run people out of parties to build it.
All right. Thank you very much. Actually, we're told of this report about the fact that she had one other interview, was it yesterday or Thursday? And some party people, elders, drove to her house and decided to block her from going and to plead with her not to go and speak any further. Let me hear from Alfred Choyeboa on this matter, whether can you take a stance that is different from the party? And if you can't or you won't, what will be the justification? Looking at it from where Dr. Arthur Kennedy is coming from. And I must say that in respect of the search in Dr. Addison's house, I'm again informed that normally is the BNI or NIB officers who are involved, and they have a system where everything they do during a search is recorded, and that's become the standard. And so it is very obvious that this would also have been recorded. Yes, Alfred Adwoa.
All right, Samson.
Are you gagging? Are you seeking? Is the party seeking to gag Adwoa Safo?
Far from that. Far from that. Adwoa Safo, as a citizen, has the right to express her opinion on any issue, including issues in the party. But if you are in a political party, you are also governed by the constitution of that party. And that if the party takes a position or a stand on a matter and you disagree, you use the internal processes to vent your disagreement. I mean, it's only when maybe you are blocked, you're not given the opportunity, then maybe you may want to go outside the party structure to come up with your comments or opinions. Now, if you look at Adwoa Safo's comment, on hindsight, maybe she could have decided not to go on in the public space to give those kind of comments that she gave. Fortunately, within the party, there is a committee that's seeking to elicit views from people on why the party lost the last elections. She may have legitimate concerns that she could also articulate through that particular committee.
What's her crime? What's her crime? That at the school feeding, there's a problem there, the government should pay attention. Somebody who was there previously attempted to compromise her corruptly, and she resisted it. That when she was not available, she had lost a pregnancy and her son was also dying, and that's why she was not available. And so people told lies about her. It was unfair. And that what? Her father's transport business, the regional minister tried to shut them, and they took away, you know, the bus terminal that they were using. And presently, it is not being put to any use. What did she say wrong?
Yes, Adwoa Safo stated what she knows about herself and then the party and her family. I'm not contesting that. But I'm only saying that because the party is now having this committee that's trying to investigate or get views of people on why the party lost, or you may know, these issues that she has raised also contributed to the party losing in some of the concerns that we have in the country, especially at Domin Kwabenya.
Right.
And so she may have that point, but my view is that at least she may want to rather use the internal process of the party to vent her demands. Each one of us may have something to say when it comes to the reasons for the party's failure or defeat in the last elections. Okay. Some say, you know, I also wanted to contest in our elections.
Right.
Eventually, I didn't contest. There may be issues, but I will not go out to say A, B, C, D. I will use the party structures, maybe tell them, this is what happened, and maybe
thank you very much. You are a gentleman. Thank you very much. Thanks to all of you. Thanks for staying tuned to Newsfile. And my outfit, as always, is by Konati Clothing. And in the spirit of Ramadan Kareem, right? You make your orders 10% to 15% discount. Call them 0244 6767 32 0244 676732, and they will make you look good for your Ramadan. I'm Samson Ladi Anyanini, and thank you to Alfred Adwoa and Arthur Kobna Kennedy, Dr. Arthur Kobna Kennedy, and Adika Selassie of the Anasis legal team, and Awula Sewa, as well as the Honorable Ama Kofibwa. Have a good afternoon.